Greetings and salutations, I'm Zach Ryan, joined by Casey DeFreitas today in the IGN Convo Corner. Casey.
Yes.
More Pokemon Let's Go news coming down the pipeline today. Some controversy being stirred up by director Junichi Masuda over some comments he made about Pokemon eggs and hatching and stuff.
Yes.
So, admittedly, I'm a Pokemon novice, so I've brought you along to kind of explain what's going on. Can you tell us a little bit about what the quote was, what the situation is that kind of stirred this controversy up?
So, Eurogamer did an interview with Junichi Masuda when they went and had hands-on with the game, and they tweeted specifically, I'd be really sad as a quote by Masuda, it says, I'd be really sad to think that for fans, Pokemon is just hatching eggs. And that might not sound like anything particular or inflammatory to a lot of people, but for a lot of people who enjoy the competitive aspects of Pokemon, that is a huge part of Pokemon games, is finding good parents that have the correct stats and natures and abilities and passing those things on to the offspring so they have a competitively viable Pokemon. And that takes hours of time, but specifically, here's the full quote by Masuda because it's a little bit different, and this is in response to Eurogamer asking why pre-evolutions and evolutions from first gen, like Pichu and Igglybuff, are not in Pokemon Let's Go.
Who could forget Igglybuff?
Yeah, man, and the reason for that is that Pokemon eggs and breeding weren't in the first generation, so they're not in Let's Go. But the full quote is, I know that a lot of people and fans have spent a lot of time hatching eggs. They've hatched a lot of eggs, but we want them to kind of discover new ways to enjoy Pokemon games. And yeah,
so I'm not a guy that's hatched any eggs, so this doesn't really matter to me, but I understand that this is the sort of meta, like super competitive stuff that draws a lot of people to really carry on through the end game.
Yes.
You know, like my experience with Pokemon has always been like, well, I played the main campaign, I'm done. So tell me about why this is upsetting people so much in terms of just this one little change. Well, not little change, but
just something. I think people are taking his comment as Masuda throwing shade to the competitive community. And I definitely don't see it that way because, one, Pokemon Let's Go is not made for competitive players. I think that's been made exceptionally clear so far. Masuda has repeatedly said this game is made so that kids can play it easily. It's for people who have not played Pokemon games. Like, think of it this way. When I started playing Pokemon, there were 150 Pokemon, there were no abilities, there were no natures, there was no breeding. There wasn't a whole lot to wrap my head around. There was also only 5 stats. And over the generations, they've added more and more and more, and to a newcomer who's like 7 or 8, all of that might be incredibly daunting for them. So they're making Let's Go to be accessible by removing some of those features or details so that it's easier for people to get into. It's not for competitive players. And I think that's also confusing people because if it's not for competitive players, why would he bring breeding up in the first place?
Right.
Especially because Masuda has a egg hatching method named after him that he put in Diamond and Pearl himself, which was a way to hatch eggs to get shinies more easily.
So you don't feel like this is necessarily something that needs to upset the wider fan base, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit conflicted myself because I feel like this has been the messaging around Pokemon Let's Go since it was first announced. Like this is a sort of a reset, a soft reset to allow newcomers into the fold with fewer mechanics, less to manage.
Yes.
And so it seems to me it was a little bit wild that this was a controversy to begin with today, but I'm glad that you were on to help clarify. That's a lot of Pokemon Let's Go information in just 4 minutes. Remember, you can catch a lot more Pokemon Let's Go information from Casey on NBC Thursdays at 3 p.m. on IGN.com and Fridays on YouTube at 3 p.m. Casey, Pokemon Let's Go comes out on
November 16th.
So stick with us. We've got a lot more Pokemon coming for you right here on IGN.